Today is May 25th, the year 2021. So it is exactly 35 years to the day that Sport Aid and Run the World happened. So today I'm going to read an extract from my book, I Ran the World, and it's going to be from chapter 11, and unsurprisingly it's called The Best Day of My Life. It had been a very long night, and Simon and I stood on the sidewalk outside the UN headquarters. First Avenue had been shut off from about 61st Street right down to 23rd, and this was to form part of the route of the New York run, as well as the final part of Omar's run from Africa. It was about 10 in the morning and the sun was shining, and we had about an hour before the start of the race. The flags of all the member states fluttered in a light breeze, and the sun shone on the huge brass bowl we had erected at the top of the ramp in front of the General Assembly building. The start and finish banners had been put up on First Avenue directly in front of UN Plaza. It was a fitting location for us to deliver our message from the people of the world, and I was just glad it wasn't pissing down. Simon sat down on the curb of the unusually empty road and talked to Bob on a mobile phone. Bob was in the BBC outside broadcast truck in London and not in New York, where he should have been. We were still having to change things at the last minute. So Bob says something like, "Let's hope the UN pay attention to our millions of runners," and then say something like, "Here's Omar Khalifa, who represents Africa. When he lights the beacon, start the race." But Bob knew what to do. This was his gig. This was what he was really good at. And I looked at Simon and just walked away. I don't want to talk to him. I wandered away towards the huge Starvision screen mounted inside the UN grounds. As I stared at the huge black screen, it flickered into life, and my mind cast back to the early hours of that morning. At around 3 a.m, we had called all of our TV directors and all the Race Against Time cities around the world to ensure everything was in place and okay to go. When we spoke to the guys in Ouagadougou, it wasn't great news. "We've got a problem." "What is it?" "You didn't tell us it's 110 degrees in the shade here. We can't keep the generators running long enough to give us power. They just overheat." "Guys, you have to find a solution. This is the African race. President Sankara has promised his entire cabinet and population will run. We have to have pictures of it. What can you do?" It was probably the worst news I could have heard. Even worse than Bob saying he wasn't coming. This was Africa's chance to show the world it was helping itself. I believed President Thomas Sankara would take part and deliver the thousands of African runners he had promised. The world must see them. This was Africa helping itself. I can't let him down. Please do what you can, guys. We must have pictures from our African race. I left that phone conversation with a heavy heart and wandered back to my hotel room to try and grab a couple of hours sleep before the biggest day in my life. We have to have a Ouagadougou. The Starvision screen in front of me flickered again, and suddenly the London feed appeared, and there in front of me were about 250,000 people in Hyde Park getting ready to start the Race Against Time. It just took my breath away. Cliff Richard was leading the crowd in a warm-up. The first world workout had its centre stage billing as promised, and more than 100,000 people were joining in. As the camera panned across the stage, I could see Diana, Michael's wife, holding her young baby in her arms, both wearing I Ran the World t-shirts and taking part in all the fun. I'd sent them VIP passes and was so happy that they were there. We were still friends. The screen flickered again and the Dublin feed appeared. Then Brisbane, Budapest, Barcelona, Seoul, Rome, Auckland, Athens, Melbourne and the Port of Spain. We were cranking up the system, testing the feeds before the broadcast. Everywhere thousands had come to tell the world they cared about Africa and wanted something to be done. My blind date with millions might just work. But as much as I wanted to scream with joy at that moment, I wanted to cry more. There were still no images from Ouagadougou, just a dark screen with its lonely, funny name in the top right-hand corner. I turned away to tell Simon, but he'd gone. This was a busy day for him. Tony Werner was line producing our Sport Aid show and Simon was off to see him. The final part of this 18-month marathon was theirs to complete. For my part, it was almost over, and I walked towards the stage outside the UN to greet the VIPs and officials. Seb Coe was there. Seb had supported Sport Aid from the first press conference in London, and today he was going to finish his support by running the New York race. For some strange reason, Harry Belafonte was leading the singing and merriment on the stage. Other guests included Vangelis and Colin Marshall looked on. Then someone grabbed me. "Chris, yeah? NBC News, can I have a few words?" Sure. NBC were more interested in why Sport Aid was on the same day as Hands Across America, and how come the rest of the world was focused on the African famine on the same day America was focused on America. I would have loved to have told them what I really thought, but instead wished Hands the best and explained we just couldn't change our date because of the UN special session. We have to deliver our message today. I turned away as the huge Starvision screen cut back to Hyde Park in London. Bob took to the stage to screams and address the enormous throng of runners that assembled before him.
It started with Live Aid, and it continues with Sport Aid. Let's listen now to Bob Geldof.
I'd like to say a special hello to everyone in Australia who've been waiting up all night. So if you could help keep the Australians awake. They've only got a couple of minutes to wait. If you could say hello to everybody in India, because it's 11 o'clock at night in India. Say hello to India. If we could say hello to everybody in Africa, where it's 125 degrees in the heat. Say hello, Africa. If we could say hello and welcome to all the people in America who are joining Hands Across America and Sport Aid today. Hello. In Russia, in Japan, in Europe, all across the world, Hyde Park and the rest of England, will you please welcome the world to this Sport Aid event. And let's hope that tomorrow in the United Nations they pay attention to the blistered feet of 20 million people who will be...
Then suddenly, as if someone had pressed a switch, the noise cranked up even more. The Vangelis anthem started and Omar could be seen, dressed in his pristine white singlet, free of any commercial logos, his white shorts and socks, and flanked by a police motorbike outriders. The most famous man in Africa at that moment was running down First Avenue towards the UN, the Sport Aid torch held aloft. The flame, as brilliant as it was 10 days earlier, when lit from the burning embers of a refugee campfire in the Sudan. The Starvision cut back to Bob in London.
I think we should say a special thanks to Omar Khalifa, the man who came out of the deserts of Sudan and ran with such dignity and such pride and represents what Africa could be if it was given half a chance. I'm going to run about 30 yards and then I'm going to fall down dead. Those of you who are watching at home, please get ready to leave your front doors right now and join us running around your block. If you're not prepared to do that, feel ashamed of yourselves and dig deep in your pocket. And phone up the numbers and bring your money down to the banks and the post offices on Tuesday morning. We need it just as much as we needed on that bright day last summer. Somebody up there likes us because it's still not raining. I don't have very much else to tell you except that I'm overwhelmed with what's happening here in London today and what's happening around Britain. It's one thing to ask people to watch a pop concert of stars. It's another thing to ask people to get out and run 10 kilometres up their city. So thank you very much. You can affect the world you live in.
Omar entered the UN Plaza and slowly, with majestic motion, jogged his way to the ramp outside the General Assembly building, the Vangelis anthem still building towards its incredible crescendo. As he climbed the ramp, there was a deafening roar, and Concorde appeared over the top of the UN building.
Change the world!
Then, miraculously, 25,000 barefooted black African runners, led by President Thomas Sankara and his entire cabinet, running down a dusty street in Ouagadougou. It was too much. I took off like a greyhound. I was running the race against time. By the time I hit 65th Street, Seb was already on his way back, followed by thousands of runners. He looked across at me with a faint look of knowing, but before pressing ahead to the finish, he looked as fresh as he did at the beginning. I was already wasted. The last 100 days had taken their toll, and even with a vast amount of adrenaline coursing through my veins at that moment, I just couldn't make it any further. I stopped, took a deep breath, and turned around. I jumped the barrier and walked with a few stragglers before jogging to the finish with a triumphant burst of speed. John Anderson was waiting for me. That was fast. I laughed. Fastest 10k I've ever run. Maybe I did a mile. Let's go over to Jim's, said John. He's got some important people there to meet you. We walked down First Avenue. The crowds had now congregated in front of the stage and the party was in full swing. Seb, Omar and Greta Whites were there on stage, dancing with the Sporte flame. Belafonte was singing Africa and the crowds were joining in. I looked across to the Star Vision as it continued to show millions running in races all over the world. My TV feed was reaching over 1.5 billion people, and they were the ones who really mattered.